Thank you very much. I think this is the most exciting challenge of my professional life, which includes helping to establish and then being a founder member of the Monetary Policy Committee in 1997. And the problems of fiscal policy now are much more challenging than the problems of controlling inflation were in 1997. It's quite remarkable that the Chancellor has given us the independent authority to produce his forecasts and to provide a public assessment of the degree of fiscal adjustment required to achieve his fiscal mandate. Most significantly, he is surrendering his power to adjust forecasts in ways which might allow him to avoid taking difficult and unpopular decisions. I'm delighted that I shall be joined as members of the Budget Responsibility Committee by Geoffrey Dix, who is a most experienced economic forecaster, and Graham Parker, who is one of the rare people who fully understands the complex and arcane process of producing fiscal forecasts. We have the support of an excellent secretariat, and I'm delighted that I already hear them talk about the Treasury as if it was some other institution whose work we shall be scrutinising and challenging. We started work on Thursday with the very talented and dedicated forecasters in the Treasury, and it's going very well. We are not claiming that we shall get the fiscal forecast right. It's easy to demonstrate that that is impossible. Above all, we shall be emphasising the risks and uncertainties. But every judgment will be ours, and we guarantee the independence and integrity of our work. We shall also increase the transparency of the forecasting process, and we hope that the result will be greater credibility and an improvement in the quality of the fiscal decisions that will have to be made. Thank you.
Right. Questions from anyone who wants to ask them? Andy.
Andy Bell, 5 News. In talking about finding that £6 billion of savings this year, you said you hope to do that without affecting frontline public services. But when it comes to really tackling the deficit, isn't it time to admit now that if you're serious about doing that, frontline public services will inevitably suffer?
Well, first of all, we are strong believers that there is more than £6 billion of wasteful government spending out there. As David said in his remarks, that is £1 in £100 of government spending we're looking for this year. And we believe that can be done, and that work is underway. And the fact that you're going to have the results within a week, I think, shows our determination to get on with it. And obviously, if we'd left it for longer, each day that passes, more money is spent, and the task would become more difficult. So, I think we're pretty clear that this can be done, as is the Treasury. And I think you'll be hearing more from us of some of the examples of wasteful government spending in the coming days and weeks. Of course, with the spending review in the autumn, we have to make big decisions about the future of government services. But I'm absolutely clear that alongside reform, we can actually improve the quality of education that people receive. We can improve the quality of healthcare that people receive. Because the big challenge is to improve the productivity of these services, which has declined steadily for 13 years. If we get the structural reforms in place, if we empower the professionals in these departments, I believe that the service that people receive will be enhanced. That, in the end, is what this is about. It's about value for money. Really, over the last 13 years, although a lot of money was tipped into these public services, not enough was got out of them. Next question. Nick.
Thanks very much. One for the Chancellor, one for the Chief Secretary, if I may. Chancellor, you've announced the date of your budget. Should people brace themselves not just for spending cuts, but for tax rises, and in particular the middle classes? and Chief Secretary, you said, I have and will reject proposals that hit key services and those on low incomes. Are you saying that your presence in this coalition has already avoided some uncomfortable and unpleasant spending cuts? And what do you say to those who say the Tories have got you where they want you, a Liberal Democrat's hand in the blood?
Shall I go first, David? Well, you can think of your answers to that. Look, I'm not going to start giving a running commentary on my first budget. Look, I've already made it clear that there are certain tax rises that the Labour government introduced or announced that we're going to find it difficult to avoid. The 50p tax rate has already come into effect, and that's that. But what I'm clear about, and I've also said there are certain things we are going to do, for example, introduce a bank levy, but I'm very clear about the things that we can avoid. And for example, the jobs tax, the most damaging part of the employer national insurance rise, we are going to avoid. Now, in the election, we had a proposal on employee national insurance. The Liberal Democrats had a proposal on income tax thresholds, and they have basically increasing thresholds of either tax. That's basically the same benefit for people. So we're very happy to undertake the Liberal Democrat proposal in that regard. We're also going to introduce capital gains tax for non-business assets. And frankly, there's an enormous amount of income shifting taking place at the moment, which is people converting their earned incomes into capital gains. And so I think that was going to be a problem facing any new government as it is. But, and let me stress this, I'm very clear that the bulk of dealing with this problem has to be borne by spending restraint. This announcement has set out measures to begin that process. I set as a broad rule of thumb the 80-20 rule, that is borne out by international best practice. In other words, that 80% of the effort needs to come from spending restraint, 20% from taxation. And as I say, the Labour government have already announced tax measures. That is because, in the end, the problem facing this country was that the government overspent, not that the country was in some way undertaxed. And that's why we've got to do the hard work. So let me end by saying this. Of course, an incoming government would like to have found a different economic inheritance. Of course, David and I, would love our first budget to be all about, handing out the goodies of some budget surplus that we had discovered. That is sadly not the case. This country is very heavily in debt. It is running a very large budget deficit. It is borrowing unsustainable amounts of money, more than almost any country in the world. We can see with countries like Greece what happens to countries that don't get a grip on their public finances, and a new government, a strong coalition government, is going to do what the Labour Party failed to do and let Britain live within its means. That will mean interest rates will be lower for longer, people's mortgages will be lower for longer, businesses will not go bust. You will not find that the largest single item of government spending ends up being debt interest bills to creditors. And that is all about getting an economy that works for everyone. David.